Welcome to Growing Cannabis with Graybeard, the podcast where we answer all your cannabis growing questions. I am Graybeard. Tonight we will be discussing our seed germination, training techniques, and our complete veg stage. As always, Ron, the producer, has a warning that there is a lot of information jam-packed in here. I will be changing things up slightly. I will still say the timestamps, but I'm also going to be posting the timestamps. I'm going to be writing the timestamps down myself, so in the description I can put them in there. So if there's something you need to go back to and re-listen to, you're more than welcome to do that. It'll be easier for you to do that, so you don't have to rely on yourself, taking notes. But you should be. You should be taking notes. And I'm just a reminder, we're going through how I personally do things. In the future episodes, we'll dive deeper into other side subjects like seed germination techniques and training techniques. And I'm just going to go through my seed germination technique tonight to keep it simple and to get you from point A to point B. And then, that will leave up, future episodes. Because next week we'll be doing the flowering stage, or drying, or curing, and our resetting, and then after that we'll be doing our cloning and our pheno hunting, and then after those two episodes we can then dive into like all of our different types of germination techniques that we can get into, all the different techniques like monster cropping that I don't do and stuff like that. And we were also discussing, me and Ron and Zoob, who just joined. Welcome, Zoob. We were talking about how we should do a cannabis culture type deal where we can dive into the history or maybe the misinformation, or so we're going to kind of expand, and I just want to get everybody up to speed on how I do things. So if you're a new grower, you can just from start to finish how to do stuff. Just know in the future episodes if I missed anything or whatever, you can either put it in the comments and let me know that I missed something, and then we can do a future episode on it, stuff like that. Just know there's going to be future episodes covering these topics that are like seed germination, which are kind of controversial because almost everybody does it a different way. So that's just this, the warning here. There's going to be a lot of stuff, and we're only going to cover how I do things to keep it simple. But future episodes will be covering multiple methods that I don't do, so I'll also be learning with you. So to start off with, we're going to cover our grow gear, and we don't really need a timestamp for this. This is just another kind of a warning. It is a must-to-have grow clothes. Do not walk into your grow with dirty clothes or shoes. We've kind of talked about this before. This is the easiest way to bring in unwanted bugs and mold into your grow. You need a long sleeve t-shirt, maybe a sweatshirt if it's in the wintertime, long pants, a hat, a beanie, a hat or a beanie, and shoes that stay in the grow. I have dedicated grow shoes that stay in the grow. They don't ever leave the grow. If I leave the grow, I take those shoes off, and when I come back to it, I'll put them back on. If I have to go, do something real quick or leave it or whatever. Same with my clothes. I'll take my clothes completely off, leave the grow, go do what I need to do, and come back and put those clothes back on. I'm paranoid when it comes to that. Maybe not other people are, and if you have an IPM program, you probably don't have to be that, paranoid. But if you have animals with hair and dog hair, and if you're trying to produce medicine for people, it's really easy to get those dog hairs all over your buds, and it's really hard to get them off. It's way easier to get them on than off. And people don't want to be smoking your dog hair or your beard hair, or your hair. It's just get used to having grow gear. It's how I do it. I don't have any issues mixed with that and my IPM. I haven't seen any bugs or any mold or anything since, we've nailed our IPM and our grow clothes. So we are finally starting to put a seed in the ground. This is how I seed germinate. After I think 4 or 5 hours of just listening to me talk about theories and all these different definitions and stuff, we're finally getting to seed germination. And your timestamp will be, we're at 4 minutes and 50 seconds for seed germination. So 4:50, I got that posted. let's go on. So our seed germination, again, this is my seed germination technique. When it comes to growing, almost everyone has a different way they seed germinate, even if it's just a slight variance. When you hear mine, you're gonna be like, "Oh, that sounds cool, but mine's probably better," kind of a thing. When it comes to growing, the veg stage, the training techniques, and the flower stage, those are pretty universal in what people's goals are, and what you can do to the plant and whatnot. But the seed germination, I swear, there's just unlimited ways you can do it. So again, this is my way to do it. The timestamp was 450, but now it's basically 540 because I've been rambling. So step one, this is my seed germination method. Step one, you fill a cup of water with 70 to 75 degrees of water. I prefer maybe a 72, but somewhere in those low to mid 70s water. I don't think it really matters. It's basically room temperature water. And you pH it to 6.0. I don't know if you need to pH it to 6.0, but I do. I pour pH water into as many shot glasses you need for how many strains you have. That's step 3. So I will have I think I just use a solo cup of water, and I'll just pour water into that. I'll pH it. I'll make sure it's the right water temp that I have, and then I'll take shot glasses or other solo cups, and I'll just fill just a teensy bit of water in every one, about a shot glass of water in each cup. And then I'll pour my seeds for each strain into those cups. So if I have strain A, B, and C, I need to have a cup for A, B, and C. If we put all of our seeds into cup A, now we don't know what our strains are. We just mixed everything up, which, if you want to do that, you can do that. It might be fun to figure out what you're growing and stuff, but we want to keep track of what plants are which strains are which. That way we can, if we need to clone, we find our favorite phenotype. We can go, okay, strain A, number 2, the second plant, that is my phenotype. But if you threw all of your seeds into one cup, now you're going to just be like, well, mystery strain 3 was really great, but now I have no idea what the lineage is. If I ever want to breed with it, if I ever want to discuss to people what it is, I'm just going to have to make up some bullshit. So that's why we keep track of, at the very start of our seed germination, keeping track where our seeds go. Each shot glass gets a different name, and it's each strain that you have. So you can put all your seeds into one strain, or all your strain seeds into one cup, but then you're going to have to label them later as strain A1, A2, A3, A4. I hope that makes sense. I hope I'm not getting too confusing. Okay, so we pour our seeds into the shot glasses, and we mark which seeds went into which shot glass, so again, we can keep track of it. And then we pre-soak at about 75 degrees for 24 hours. I like to put, if it's a solo cup, I like to put another solo cup over it, upside down, so it's completely dark, and I keep it in about a 75 degree room and in pure darkness for 24 hours. I come back the next day, probably around hour 18, hour 20, and I'm only soaking them, and the only reason why I soak them is because I heard somewhere that it activates something, or it takes out the outer shell of the seed, and just if it's an older seed, it'll make it active, and then when you put it in the ground, it's a better germination. It could just be all bro science. It's different than what people call float tech, where they wait for the tail of the seed to come out and then you plant it. I don't wait for the tail. I just do 18 to 24 hour soak. If there is a slight tail, it's there, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm just trying to take that outer layer, whatever, over the shell. I couldn't even tell you what that's why I do it. You probably could skip this step, but I've had great success doing it this way, and I just always do it the same way now because seeds are expensive, and once you find a way that works, you're most likely not going to try to change it unless you got bag seed or something to try new stuff with. So the next day, 24 hours later, I'll grab a 5-gallon bucket and I'll fill about a gallon of water in it. I'll pH that water to 6.0, and I'll mix in the clone week feed. So if you go back to our last episode, you go back to the week or our feeding chart, this is when we start following our feed chart. Just look at what the clone feed chart is. I can tell you real quick. It is 10 milligrams of photosynthesis plus, and it's 5 milliliters of liquid karma. That it's just those two combinations, just a beautiful thing. I just love using those. Then I will put my rapid rooters into the water. So you need to buy your root riots or rapid rooters, whatever they're called. They're usually used for cloning, where you put your clones in them. I prefer to use them for both cloning and for my seeds. So I like to put those rapid rooters in there, and I let them soak in there for a few minutes so they can soak up all those microbes and all that liquid karma goodies. And then I'll grab my germination tray and plant tags and mark my strains to keep track of which rooter has which strain. So you have your bucket, or you have all your shot glasses or your solo cups that have your seeds in it. And now I'll take, usually, say if I'm trying to fill my tent with 6 plants, I do 2 strains of each, so I have a little bit of variety. So 2 rapid rooters will have a tag that says plant A1 and plant A, and then plant B and plant C, all down my strains. And then later on, when I take those, once the seeds have sprouted in my rapid rooters and I take them out and transplant them, that's when I'll mark them as plant A1, plant A2, plant A3, and then move to the next strain, plant B1, plant B2. And the plant B or plant A, those are the names of your strain. So it could be, Girl Scout Cookies 1, 2, and 3, and, Golden Glue or Golden Goat or something like that, number 1, 2, and 3. And then, just something like that, where you got to make sure you're keeping track of everything. Because when you find that pheno, you're going to want to know what it was. You're going to want to know which one it was. It's just so crucial to keep track of everything. So, again, you got germination rates. We wrote down our strains and the rapid rooters. So we're grabbing a rapid rooter out of the bucket, and we're squeezing the dripping water, but not all the water. Like these rapid rooters soak water like a sponge. So when you pick it up, it's heavy. It's noticeably just soaking wet, and it's dripping wet. And I just take it and I squeeze it, not to the point where it's dry, but to the point where it's just before it's done being dripping wet, if that makes sense. So if you added just a tiny bit more water, it'd start dripping again. There's a fine line of having, because once you put them in your domes, these things will maintain its moisture, or they'll gain more moisture. So you don't want them to be too dry where they can't gain the moisture, but if they're too wet to where they get dripping wet and stuff again, then your seed's going to die and drown in there. So there's a fine line, but I've noticed if you squeeze it lightly until there's no more water coming out the bottom, that's about the perfect. And when you're looking at it, you'll see that it looks a little lighter brown. You may need to water it a little bit, or like redo your. If it looks light brown, you need to put it back in there and try again. If it's in between that like light brown and super dark soaking wet brown color, this is just gonna have to be an eye type thing. You'll see that that's the sweet spot. If it's light brown, it's too dry. If it's soaking wet, it's too wet. But I guess a good way to look at it, like how the rapid rooter looks when you pull it out of the bag. It has like that dark brown, but it's not soaking wet or anything. That's kind of the color you're looking for. You're trying to bring it back to that with the clone feed stuff, or not the clone, the germination seed. I said clone earlier. This is the germination seed. It's the same feed, but we're just trying to get that soaked in there, maintain that moisture level, and then when we put it in the rapid rooters, we don't even have to water them. They'll stay wet and keep that moisture level that you give them. So that's why we have to make sure our moisture level is perfect going in. And then grab your seeds. I do it with tweezers. I don't know how else anybody else would do it, but I grab them with tweezers. I put them into the rapid rooters. When I'm grabbing the seed, it's kind of hard to grab in the floating water, but once you get it, just kind of drop it in the hole. As far as it drops into the hole, like if the seed's above the rapid rooter still, you'll see like root riots are kind of like really tight. So you kind of have to like rip them open a little bit and spread them open a little bit so the seed will fall in there. But you only want to go about no more than a ½ inch deep into those things, like even a quarter inch. They just need somewhere to sit in there. I've noticed the deeper down that you put it, the worse off you're gonna be. But you don't want it to be like sitting at the top of the rapid rooter where it's like a mound or something. You want to get it below basically the soil level of the rooter, and then we just put a little bit of our cocoa core above it to cover it up so there's no light covering or penetrating the seed. Light will kill the roots. And that's all you need to do with your seeds. Once you have them all marked and all, I put them in a line. I have a picture of my seedling. Oh, that's what I should do. I'll put my seedlings up right here. Chat, you're gonna have to. I'll upload it. Hang on. I won't leave you guys out. So, this is the seedling stage. So this is after they've already popped out of the ground. But that's what they look like. I put them in a line. You should see it on the video too. I put them in a line and I mark each line. So I think you may be able to read in there. That one says like Donatello or something in the middle. Those are all Donatellos. The ones on the left is separate. The ones on the right are separate. And then when they get to that stage, that's when I'm taking them out of the domes and transplanting them. But I just wanted to show a picture real quick of what it looks like in the rapid rooter. With the seeds, you see the hole there. I just put, once the seed's there, I sprinkle a little hole, cocoa over those holes, and then they're wet enough to maintain their moisture. I put the dome on. I seal all the holes of that dome. There'll be 3 holes, 2 on the sides and 1 on the top. I actually duct tape those shut so there's absolutely no air escaping out, and the humidity will rise to, we'll get that into a second, but that humidity will keep everything good. You may need to go in there like day 2 or 3 and give them a slight sprinkle of the same kind of feed, 6.0 water, and the seedling or the germination feed, but they usually are good to go. You don't have to just wait about 3 to 5 days and all of them will pop up. The only ones that usually don't pop up for me are the ones that I had way too wet and they just drowned. And then I'll open up and I can see that they just look all mushy and dead. And but yeah, so once done, okay, we put the lid on the germination tray. We leave it on until most of the seedlings have popped up out of the rooters. Once the seedlings are out of the rooters, that's when I take the dome off and let them get acclimated to our natural environment. If you let them sit in that dome as seedlings for like a week or something, or even a few days, and they get like acclimated to that 90% humidity, they probably will just dampen off and die when you try to bring them to the real world. So as soon as they pop up, I'm hoping that they all pop up around, within a day or so of each other, and then I can take that dome off and they're instantly, living that life and not the 90% humidity life. So our temp and humidity in our dome will be 75 to 77 degrees, and will be about 90% plus humidity in the dome. Our light height will be 24 inches above it, maybe 32 inches, depending on how strong your light is. And the light intensity will be 70 watts. And the light timer will be 18.6. I actually think I miswrote this because I changed some things. I'm pretty sure the light height is 32 inches. I always do 32 inches. I don't know why I put 24. I had a different technique of doing things that I'm not even going to cover because it failed. I don't even want to get that idea into your guys' brain. So the light height is actually 32 inches with the light intensity at 70 watts. And that's the lights that I suggested in the equipment. You may have weaker lights or use T5s or something like that. You might have a whole different setup. That's when you kind of have to figure out. But if you're using the HLG 300L B spec or those Mars Hydro TSW 2000s, or you just bought the Scorpion Diablo and trying to use that, all of those will be good at 32 inches, 70 watts, and on an 18.6 timer. Which brings us to the seedling stage, which timestamp 1950. Let me put that real quick. 1950. So our seedling stage. This is when your plants will be most vulnerable. Once the sprouts pop out of the ground, we need to take off the dome and make sure the rooters stay wet. We have to do this for 7 to 10 days before we transplant into our solo cups. About a week. If you ran into problems or some strains take longer to pop, maybe 10 days. But I noticed about 7 days is when I transplant the rooters. They look about like this in the picture, and I take them out of the pots and I transplant them. From here on out, make sure to follow my nutrient guide. Feed plain water until the first set of serrated leaves, and then feed very light newts. And that plain water, again, this is I copy and pasted from my SOPs, and I did need to do more proofreading. But when I say plain pH water, you definitely want to add those Photosynthesis Plus and the Liquid Karma to this. That's before I added these two. You definitely want to use those two products from start to finish. Just makes everything better. Your plants are going to be healthier. Yeah. So, and we're going to do this until they look about like this in the picture. Those first set of serrated leaves, you can see. Ron will probably have to tell me what those, I think never can remember those set of leaves are called. But you can see the little serrations in those. That's when we start feeding our seedling stage feed in the guide. And that's when we start to introduce our Athena and everything, our base feed there. The dicots, thank you, Ron. We're going to slowly boost up our nutrients from here on out. That first feed, even whatever's on my feed chart, you might want to half it just to make sure and slowly work them up to it so we don't burn and kill them instantly. This is why we also make sure our ppms and pH are on track so they're getting exactly what they want. Again, I use Photosynthesis Plus and Liquid Karma every day, and I add my base newts a few days after they up and out of the soil. I pH my water to 6.0, and it's going to be 6.0 pH all throughout veg stage. Maybe later in veg, like maybe 2 weeks before flower, you can up that pH a little bit, but I pretty much stick with 6.0 from seed germination to end of veg. Again, check your EC and ppm to make sure you're in the right range when you're feeding. And feeding the rooters and keeping them wet like this for the first 7-10 days. Our temp and humidity will be 75 to 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Sorry, Canadians. I don't know what that is in Celsius, but 75 to 77 degrees and 60%, 60-65% humidity. They like higher temps and higher humidity in veg. This is just a baseline. The plants are always the boss, but you can go higher than that, I'm pretty sure. The VBD, around 1.2, 1.45. The veg loves higher temps and humidity. I think flower does too, to be honest. I've had better results when you in that higher 70s. Our light height will be 24 inches, so we're bringing it down to 24 inches. Sorry, that's still wrong, because this is set up for my old method. Our light height will be 32 inches. Sorry about that. 32 inches. We're increasing our light intensity from 70 watts to 150 watts, and our light timer is still 18.6. So we're just gradually increasing our newts, gradually increasing our light intensity as the plants grow older, but they're still very young, very vulnerable to dapping off. Your plants are the weakest at this point, like I said. Every day that you get through is a day stronger your seedlings will be and turn into veg. Once you get into that veg stage, they're a lot more durable. They can take a lot more stress, but these seedlings are very, very delicate. And I'm just going to quickly go through sexing methods that I use, and this is why some of my notes are messed up here, because one of my sexing methods I used to use, I do not do anymore, and I'm not going to teach you guys how to do it because I do not believe in it, and I believe it causes problems. So I'm not going to even talk about that, but there's 2 other methods I really want to just quickly go over. This will be one of those videos or one of those subjects where we'll cover in another video. We'll go through all the different types of sexing methods. But Farmer Freeman, there's another company, I couldn't remember what it is, so Farmer Freeman gets the free shout out and the other company does not. They have these sexing kits that, basically all you do is you can cut off a little tip of your leaf. You send it in with these labels. He sends this whole labeling kit and stuff. You send in your leaf material. I think you can even just rub the leaf onto the paper, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe somebody who uses them can tell it, but I'm pretty sure you have to cut off a little piece and send it in with it, and then 3 to 5 days later you'll be getting your sex results in email, I believe. So Farmer Freeman is a good way. I think each test costs around like $10. So if you're running lots of plants, it can get pretty expensive. And if you buy it in bulk, it's a little bit cheaper. But that is like the most guaranteed way to just get it out of the way. Your seedlings, if you're running reg seeds, you can just get a little tip off your seedlings, send it in, and you don't have to spend more than 14 days with a seedling because you'll know the sex by it. You'll keep the females. If you don't want the males, you can get rid of those, or you can put your males in a different tent. Farmer Freeman is probably the best and easiest, but also the most expensive way to do it. The other way we can do it is we can wait for them to grow up to being in the small veg stage where we can cut a clone, and we'll get into clone cutting later. I decided to take clone cutting out of this series because I feel like it just needs its own separate video. Most of these things do, but we'll get into cloning later. But basically, you cut a clone, and you just instantly put that in the rapid rooter and throw it into 1212. And in 10 days, you'll see what sex that is. We'll mark them all, and then you know which plant is which. So then, when you get your sex, you see which ones are males, which ones are females, and you can pull your plants out. That's the cheaper method, but you'll have to keep more plants alive for longer if you plan on only running females. That's the downside, but it's a lot cheaper than spending $10 per plant. But that's two ways to sex your plants. And this whole time I could have put up my image for sexing. Let me post that in chat real quick too. We might as well go over that real quick so we can see what sexing is. So if you look at the left picture, you can see what male pre-flowers look like and female pre-flowers look like in the diagram, and they tell you everything what it is. And you got the stipules. I think that's how you say it. A lot of people think those things in the front are your female plants. Those are on all plants. You'll see those pop up first before you see the sex. You'll actually see those, and then you'll see the sex pop up behind those usually. And the males are these little balls. A lot of times they'll be on little sticks too, like it's like a stick on a ball or a stick with a ball. And then the pistil you can see, or the female part, the calyx with a pistil, is this long teardrop shape, and it has these white hairs that come out of it, which are called pistils. And on the right side of the diagram, you can see what an actual plant looks like when they're showing you these pre-sexes. So on the left side is the pre-sex, and on the right side is it being a little bit more mature. On the females, you can see the teardrop with the pistils coming out of it. The males are more of just this ball shape. And again, a lot of times they're on this like stick. If you can get good at identifying pre-sex, you'll spend less time messing with plants that you're not trying to mess with. If you're trying to use reg seeds, female seeds will always, unless they're intersex or something, will always produce the bottom set there of the teardrop and the pistil. But yeah, that's just a quick little example of what you're looking for in your plants. We're growing females again. That's what grows the buds. The males is what produces more seeds for us if we're trying to breed. The females are the only ones we want in this process. But moving on, again, sexing, I always say sexting. Sexing is, a whole different method that we're going to have to get into, a whole different video. We'll break that all down, different methods, different types, and we can go through what I did and why I don't like it and why it was a problem too. So it would just make this video so long, and I'm just trying not to do that. So we are now transplanting our seedlings into our solo cups. Let's see if I have a picture of this on here. Yep, there we go. Nope, that's the wrong picture, so we'll just keep up seedlings. So when we're transplanting into our solo cups, around after 7 to 10 days, you should see lots of roots coming out of your rooters. You should be able to just pull them out of the, you can just pull the rooter out and you'll just see all these roots coming out of the rooter. That's when I start transplanting. So grab as many solo cups as you need and cut 3 to 4 drain holes at the bottom of the lip of the cups to allow nice drainage. Right where like it lays flat and it comes up to, the vertical part of the cup, that little corner piece is where I'll go around and put 4 holes evenly around the bottom, so when I'm watering, any excess water will just drain right out of them. Grab your bag of cocoa and perlite and fill the cup up to about a third or to half of the way, depending how tall your seedling is. The taller seedlings will need to go deeper in the cup because they're going to be so tall and need a little bit more support. The shorter seedlings will need to be a little bit more higher up in the cup. Make a hole in the middle, the size of your rapid rooter, and all you need to do really is just take a couple fingers and just dig right in the middle and just kind of shift it side to side and around. Get it just a nice hole in there that's about an inch in diameter that you can easily put drop your rapid rooter in there, and then you can put over your cocoa and bury it lightly. Place the rapid rooter carefully in the hole. Fill the rest of the cup with cocoa, lightly packing it down, and leave a little room on the top for watering. I leave about, a quarter inch from the top, just enough to where you can pour a decent amount of water in there without it, overfilling and having to wait to. If you put the soil all the way to the very top of the plant, you're going to have issues with watering because you're just going to have to put a little bit of water in at a time. Leave a little bit of space up top so you can water properly. Mix your water with your nutrients. This will be our seedling stage, maybe our Veg 1 feed, depending how fast your plants are growing, how big they are, how much food they want. But this is when you're transplanting. We're going to be using our base nutes, our photosynthesis plus, our liquid karma, and our silicium or our silica. Silica is a nice stress reducer. I add it to the water. I actually double it when I'm adding it just to make sure that it gets nice, good strength in there. That mix right there, with the mixture of the microbes, a mixture of the liquid karma, which is also a nice stress reducer, and the silica, I rarely have any kind of transplant stress. My plants just go to the next pot and just keep on going. That's why I add these things. Without these, I used to just do the base nutes, and the plants would look sad after a while, and then I added microbes and noticed that they didn't look as, it just slowly worked up to this feed, and now I don't have any kind of transplant shock ever. And lastly, pour water in the area where the rooter is and nowhere else. Let the roots expand outwards only by feeding where they're at. If you feed and the next day is still wet, it means the roots are not big enough to absorb the water, and you'll see where the roots eat more by when they're eating more water by when you're looking at the cocoa, it like dries up. You'll look at where the rooter is and it dries up. And I've also heard, and I could be wrong, I've always done it that way. I've always put it where the rooter is, but I also heard of people put it where the roots should go. So you don't water the rooter, you water around the rooter on the edge. And I don't know if that's good information or not. I've always done it where the roots are and slowly expand as they expand. So within that first couple days will just be right there, but by like day 2 or 3 in the solo cup, the whole cup is getting wet because the roots are already expanded in there. We're just trying not to drown it with the small roots, and we can feed it every day without drowning them. Maintain a more constant water level. So we transplanted. We're in our solo cups, this is when I start doing our IPM. And do I have a solo cup picture? I do not. So we'll just switch to that one. Okay. And our protocol for IPM, we will start IPM training after transplanting into our small pots. These are the things we'll need. We will need our spray bottle, our chemical goggles, a chemical mask, a long sleeves, long pants, and any head cover. You should already have those last three anyways, because those are part of your grow gear. You do not want to get these on you or breathe them. It is a must to wear these while mixing and spraying IPM. We're using a biofungicide. It is natural, but you still don't want to, like, even our nutrients. You do not want to spray chemicals into the air or any kind of particles in the air and breathe that, or get in your eyes or on your skin. It's just a good way to get some kind of medical issue, not in the growing sense, but I know a friend of ours who was doing it in the concentrates area and doing BHO and stuff, and he had to do a hospital stay for weeks because it messed up his lungs, and that stuff can get very scary. I'm not saying our nutrients are horrible for us or anything, but we don't want to be spraying that on us or in our eyes. Or the proper PPE is always correct. Always read labels and look at the MSD online. Thank you, Ron. And don't mix bleach or vinegar. Thank you again, Ron. You will kill yourself if you mix bleach and vinegar, if you do not know that. There's chemicals are nothing to mess with. This is why we're doing it properly, the right way, and I want to teach you to do it the right way. And that's why I'm not gonna go, oh well, you don't need gloves. Now you need gloves, you need your goggles, you need your mask. There's nothing to be messing with. But this is how we do it. So excuse me. Step 1, we will fill our spray bottle with about a 1/4 gallon of water, or 32 ounces of water. Step 2, we'll mix in 15 milliliters of push. Step 3, we'll mix 7.5 milliliters of Regalia CG. Between each of these steps, we are stirring the contents. My spray bottle, got one of those little handheld spray bottles, so I'll just spin it in my hand to mix it. So I'll put my push in, mix it in for about 10-15 seconds. Put my Regalia and mix that in for a good 30 seconds before, because Regalia is a little bit thick. And we're doing this every week. Regalia gets every week, push gets every week. And then step 4, we're mixing 7.5 milliliters of Venerate or 2 grams of Grandivo. And those are rotating. Those are rotating bug bottles. And our Grandivo is in clay form again, so you're going to need a scale to use that. But the Venerate and Regalia are both the same at 7.5 milliliters, and Grandivo is at 2 grams. So if you did Venerate this week, you're doing Grandivo next week, and vice versa. And our pH will be 7.0. Doing some research, the 7.0, they say you can do 6 to 8, but that 7.0, according to Marone Bio, is the optimal for IPM and their products, and for push it says the same thing. I don't know why 7.0 is, but I hit 7.0 every single time after reading that from both those companies. No, J-Rock, this is per quart. Sorry, let me go back. The 15 milliliters of push, 7.5 milliliters of Regalia, 7.5 milliliters of Venerate, and 2 grams of Grandivo. That's all in a quart of water, or 32 ounces of water. You will not need more than that. If you're gonna, if you have a field or an outdoor grow or something, maybe you need to mix a gallon. You're just gonna have to times those by 4. But yeah, I've noticed in indoor, you do not need to mix more than a quart. I used to try to mix 60 ounces or something, or 64 ounces. It's just you're wasting it, and then you got all this nutrients. What are you gonna do? All this fungicide. What are you gonna do with? Don't want to be draining that down the drain and stuff. So we're mixing just enough that we need to where we can cover everything, and maybe go out to our outdoor plants and spray those too. Yep, quart sizes are the way to go. I agree. So that's our IPM. Oh, sorry. And when we're spraying, our last step, when we're spraying the plants, spray from the bottom of the plant, bottom of the stem, all the way up towards the top of the plant. And we're spraying the bottom of the leaves as we're going up and in an upwards motion. And that's where bugs like to lay their eggs or like to hide or like to eat or, a lot of things like to hide under the leaves. So that's why we spray up first, make sure we're getting soaked in the center of the core and all the leaves on the underside. And then when we are up from the top, we go back down from the tops of the leaves all the way back down. This will ensure complete coverage from top to bottom of your plant. There are going to be no bugs on that bad boy. I leave my tent open after I do this, and the push does a really good job being a natural surfactant to where after like 5 minutes, your plant can be soaking wet, and after about 5 minutes, your plants are dry, looking good, and they're starting to prey. They really enjoy that mix. Even as a biofungicide, they love it. It activates stuff in them to where they're just really happy. But again, from bottom to top, top to bottom, bottom to top, top to bottom. You're going to do that to every plant. And you will not have any issue. And doing that way too, all those particles will float down onto the top of your cocoa. So anything that might have tried to like get in your cocoa too, that will be unpleasant. But we're not soaking our cocoa. We're just, it just gets a slight misting of it. And if you have a little bit extra and you don't know what to do with your IPM, like you can easily just spray those into your soil. We're not doing complete root drenches. You can if you have an infestation. Again, we talked about that. I don't do it unless I have an infestation because it can kind of gump up your... Regalia is pretty thick, and if you completely soak your roots, it takes a couple days for your plants to kind of start feeding the same again. It's like feeding your plants a bunch of molasses almost, it feels like. But yeah, that's why we don't do the soil drench. Spray around the outside of your tent and grow area and put up a good barrier with the extra. That is also a great idea. I also used to buy the home defense spray. That's some more nasty chemical stuff. But like if you're in a basement that has a bunch of bugs, I would spray, around my perimeter of my grow, not with my plants in there at all. Like this is before I even set anything up, but this just reminded me of it. I'll put that home defense stuff around my basement twice a year. So if I cut all my plants down, I'll put it down again. I'm definitely not spraying that with my plants in there at all. Ortho home defense for the win. Yeah, that stuff's awesome. But yeah, the extra IPM, you definitely can spray around your area. You'd be good to go. The regalia might stain your tent though. Just a forewarning, Doc. It's kind of orange and it'll stain some stuff. So, but yeah, I usually don't even have any extra using that quart size. If so, it's just like a slight spray, and I'll just spray a couple of the soil beds real quick. So we are officially in small veg. Our plants are about 4 to 6 inches tall with a couple stacking sets of leaves. After a few days of transplanting in the soil cups, you should be hitting this stage. You will also have to start feeding the cups to drain every day. I mean, every day you're going in there, you're completely soaking that cup, and there is water just pouring at the bottom of it. And when I mean pouring, I probably mean like at least 10 to 20%. At least for me, I'm keeping that thing soaking wet most of the time. The plants just love it. And I'll let me post my root ball here for the second transplanting that we're about to get to. And this is why I do. I get my roots nice and thick and they just love that water. Every day. I'm not feeding high ppms either. Like if I was feeding higher ppms, I would not be feeding as frequently, but I feed enough ppms to where I can feed once a day every single day. So where did I leave off? As the roots grow, they become more and more hungry. That's a fact. Like if you see the picture I just posted, that plant will be almost dry after a day, even if I soak it completely to drain to waste. Two Tokes, what up, bro? Haven't seen you in a while, man. Hope you're doing good. Michigan, hope you're doing good, brother. Doc, I didn't say hi to you either. Much love to you too, brother. Your ppms will be around 500 at every time you feed while rotating your boosters, which your boosters are just your microbes and your silica basically at this point in time. That base feed is basically just getting you through everything. Base feed, liquid karma, photosynthesis plus, those are the top dogs. Your pH will be again at 6.0 during this entire veg stage. And this is also when I start adding fans. One fan on its lowest setting should be good. Don't point the fan directly at the plants. Light air movement is all we are looking for. I put this fan up high with my light. It's almost just pointing at the light. It's so you guys are all good. Don't worry. That's why we're recording it. I put up the fan up high on low. And I just turn that on low, and inside your tent, that will create enough air circulation to where you see your leaves just barely moving. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to get them to slightly shift in the wind constantly so they get nice and strong. If we point it directly at them, you'll go there the next day, and your plant will be a sideways, very unhappy. You still might have to support your plants during this stage too. I buy garden wires a lot of the times, because certain ones just want to grow sideways or fall down or whatever, and those garden wires are perfect to help keep your plant upright during this small stage where they're still weak. And that's why I add the fan, so that structure of that plant gets stronger and stronger every day, to where, by the end of veg, you got very strong, thick, sturdy stems, along with other training techniques. But fans are, one, they maintain your temperature, not maintain it, but make sure you don't have any kind of hot spots or anywhere. They maintain airflow. And two, they're like free stress testing. It's very light stress testing on your plants. It's natural. Your plants love it. And it's not free because you're paying for electricity, but you have to do it anyways. So I add them as soon as I can to where they don't get hurt. But again, they're up high. Our temp and humidity, again, will be, 75, 77, maybe 80. Our humidity will be, 60%, 65%, somewhere in there, maybe high. Your plants are the boss. But our VPD we're aiming for is about 1.2 to 1.4. I think veg plants might be able to go a little bit lower, but high humidity, high heat is usually the route to go with veg. Your plants just love it in veg. Our light height, again, will be at 32 inches. Our light intensity will be at 200 watts, and our light timer will be 18.6. Again, the light height and the light intensity will be determined on the lights that you choose to use, but if you bought one of the lights that I suggested, you can follow those light heights and intensities and have no worries. And now, we're going to go transplant into our final pots. And we're pretty much every day, we're skipping large chunks of time here, but every day, like in small veg, you're just doing this every single day. And in seedling stage for those 7 days, you're doing what I said every single day for those first 7 days. And it's pretty straightforward. It's just I'm skipping large amounts of time, it seems like. Just remember, small veg is going to be 1 to 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, depending how slowly your plants grow. If you're not feeding them, if you're not putting them in high performance mode, they'll take slower. If you're like on hydro, you're at this point in time, you're probably already almost close to flowering. It just all depends where you're at. But the plants are the boss, and you're just going to have to determine, like I said, small veg is usually between 4 and 6 inches tall. And I think I just screwed up here we go. I'll put up small veg for a second as I talk about this. But we're going to be transplanting to our final pots. And if you see in the picture, here, I'll post that I'm all over the place. I'm sorry. Here's what small veg looks like for the Discord homies. That's what I consider small veg. You got those first initial leaves. They're about 4 to 6 inches tall. And as you can see, the leaves are starting to outreach over the solo cups. This is a good indication. And with your roots at the bottom popping out of those holes is when you go, okay, they're ready to be transplanted. So as we're transplanting, you can look up above this picture. This is when you pull these plants out of their cups. That's what the roots should look like. And going back to that, since now we're talking about transplanting again, I don't transplant until my roots look similar to this. I want to get close to root bound. This isn't root bound. Plants are still happy, but that big chunk of roots, when you put it in a new fresh soil, especially if you put your hand, like if you're an experienced grower, you can break up that ball a little bit by not like breaking the roots or anything. And by putting that into, yeah, two tokes, hell yeah, that's what I'm looking for when I see roots. I know I've seen people that have less roots, but I like to see all that white, because when you break it up, you put it in your new pot, they explode. Within like a week, your plant is double, if not triple the size, and you already have roots like coming out of your pots. That's why I like to get to this point. It just guarantees that explosion into the final pot. So, going back, transplanting to final pots, and I just realized I didn't say, did I say small veg? I did not say the small veg timestamp, my bad. But this is the transplanting timestamp, which will be 51 minutes and 11 seconds. So much for it being short today. 51:11. Looks like I won't have a small veg stamp. That's fine. So, transplanting to our final pots. We will be repeating what we did with the first transplant. This will happen around day 25 and 30. Again, if you're in like hydro or something, this will probably be day, sooner. Hydro is way faster. Soil, probably the same way. I'm not too familiar with organics. So get your 5-gal fabric bed. I do 3-gal, so if you want to do 3-gal, you can do that. But I'm going back to my 5 gals, I think. So grab your 3 to 5-gal fabric bag. This will be your final bag. Fill them up 3/4 of the way up with cocoa. Step 2, make a hole. And the best way to make a hole is use an empty solo cup to make the shape of your hole. So just kind of dig a hole, put your solo cup in there, and if it doesn't fit, keep digging, put it in there, keep digging, put it in there until that goes down just slightly below the soil level, and you'll be the new pot soil level. And when you transplant, it will easily just fit right into that hole, no problem. Take your plant out of the cup by lightly squeezing the cup at the bottom until it comes loose. I kind of, as you can see in that picture, I flip it over into my hand, and then with my other hand, I put like 2 of my fingers on top and all my other fingers on the side of the cup, and I'm kind of pushing down at the flat side and kind of squeezing on the sides to help it just kind of like pop off. It's kind of a little bit stuck onto the cups, and you just slightly, once it like unstucks, it just comes right out. So you don't need to be aggressive, just kind of slowly work it, flip it upside down. Some of the cocoa and stuff might like fall off the top of that soil, so I usually do this over like a tray or something so it collects all the dirt and dust, because it gets real messy. So if you're confident, like I said, you can break the root ball up at the bottom to help expand in the soil. Do not do this if you're just like brand new and not experienced grower at all, or you just don't feel comfortable. It's not necessary, but I have noticed when you break up like that lower, like inch of that root ball at the bottom there, that it just explodes. Those roots just are just trying to find places to go. So place the plant into the hole, lightly filling the bag up and packing it lightly down about a 1/2 inch from the top for watering. So again, we're filling it all the way up, but we're leaving about a 1/2 inch to an inch from the top of the bag. So when we're watering, we can water evenly, and as the water rises, because it won't just all sink down instantly. It'll build up if you're watering a lot, and you'll need that like inch of 1/2 inch to inch of freedom to let the water rise a little bit. Otherwise, you're going to pour a little bit, and then you have to wait for it to soak, pour a little bit, let it soak. Giving that inch, 1/2 inch gives you that time so you can pour constantly without it overfilling. And if you are pouring constantly and it's about to overfill, I've learned like as a little technique, like if it gets to that point, that's when you stop feeding, and you probably perfectly fed your plant. Especially if you do this every day. That's how I've noticed my roots just explode in veg, is Once it starts building up, like as you're pouring, the water will just completely soak everything, and it'll start building up, and that's when I'm like, okay, that's when I let it sink, and I stop pouring. I wait a couple seconds, and you may get like 5 to 10% runoff, which is perfect, or you may not get any of it, but you can feel your pot is nice and heavy. You can feel on the side of the fabric it's wet all the way down. That's kind of what I'm looking for when I'm feeding. But that's, having that half inch to inch leverage at the top gives you that ability to do that. Mix your water with your nutrients. Again, you're using your base nutrients, your photosynthesis plus, liquid karma, and silicium. That is your transplant feed. And you can up the stakes on the photosynthesis plus, liquid karma, and silicium if you feel like it, to really give it an extra boost so you don't get that transplant shock. When watering, we do the same as we did the last transplant. Water only where the roots are. Slowly work your way outwards to the end of the pot as time moves on. You won't need to water the full pot for about a week or so. So the first day you water about the solo cup size, and then the next day you're probably about like a 2-liter size, and the day after, you're slowly working it out. If you plan on top dressing anything for any reason later than, okay, well, let me reread that too, Tokes. If you plan on top dressing anything for any reason later, would you leave like 2 inches? Yes. No. Yeah, that inch is still probably good enough. Because when you're top feeding, I don't know if anyone watches, if you're listening to me, you probably have watched Mr. Canucks grow, because he's like the top dog on YouTube. If you watch him do it, he puts the top amendments down, and he kind of just like massages it in. He'll pour each scoop of what he's pouring in there, and he just kind of massages it in, and he too only has maybe an inch of from the top of this. So, and the more soil you got in there, the better, because there's more roots to be made. And in my opinion, if you only fill like halfway, now your 3 gallon or your 5 gallons only a 2.5 gallon or a 1.5 gallon bag. So we're trying to get it up to as much as we can without hindering us. But that's a great question. I'm pretty sure from watching his videos alone, you should be good with that 1 inch. So now we will be in our large veg, but first I want to talk about our training techniques, because this is when we start to really get into training. And I might be all over the place here, but hopefully I'm not. So let me post the picture real quick for what... This is just a basic picture. I wasn't very ready for these pictures today. I thought I had a lot more pictures in my gallery, and I couldn't find anything. But this is just a basic picture that you're seeing on the video and the Discord too. You're seeing the lollipopping, you're seeing the super cropping with my LST benders. You're not seeing the defoliation or the topping, but we can discuss that. But this is what we're aiming for our bottom of our plants to look like. So I personally like to start my train after the first transplant in small veg. After transplanting into our solo cups, the plants are ready to start our topping. The small node you find at the top of your tops can be removed and will produce double the amount that were there. So the small node, I'm going to actually have to post that too real quick. Sorry, this is when all the pictures start coming flying in. I kind of just want to make sure you guys know what I'm talking about here. So now you should see it on both the video and in Discord again. So when I'm topping, you see in this picture, it shows cut the main stem here. I actually don't cut it there. I actually go up higher where the leaves, you see where all the leaves are up higher there? You can split those 2 tiny leaves up there, and there's going to be a top in there where it's just growing off a stem. It's just this little node, and you can just, I thought I had a picture of it. I tried to find pictures of it online. I learned this technique from Mr. Canucks. You don't need to cut, like if you're trying to cut a clone, you can do what this picture's saying. But you can go up higher to where you go to the very top, in the very middle, and you'll see this little node. You'll have to spread these 2 little leaves apart. That little node, you can just go back and forth and snap off. you can just bend it over one side and it usually just pops off. That's how I top my plants, because that all right there above that cut line is also tops. So if you top right there, you got those two right there at the cut line that will grow up and be tops. You got the two in the middle that you just split apart that will be tops, and the thing that you just topped off will also turn into two. So that's how my mind works. I don't like to go down the nodes because you're removing more nodes. I don't know. But if you're trying to clone, this is a good technique. But again, I don't clone from the top of my plant either. If I'm cloning, I'm going to the bottom of the plant, because I personally think, I don't know if anybody in here also thinks that, I personally think the bottom clones root better, are better cloners, better plant, but mother plants. Those tops don't root as good, in my opinion. Just in my opinion. But yeah, you can do it how this diagram says it, or you can split apart the top. And right when you transplant into, if you remember how that picture looked like in the small veg, they'll only have that one top, and you just pop it off. And next week, when you come back into the tent, you're going to have 4 tops up there. You'll see that it's split off with 4 total tops. And I don't know if I have a picture of my tops expanding or not. I do not. But let's keep going. So over time, 1 top will turn to 2, and then 4, then 8, and so on. Once a week, topping your plant about 3 total times in its veg life. So you can do it like once every other week. I've been trying to find the sweet spot. Last time I went really heavy on the toppings. I don't know if that was necessary. I think like 3 toppings, in 3 weeks in a row. And once you get to that 3rd topping, you're taking off anywhere from like 16 to 32 tops per plant. Just little nodes. You're going to every branch, taking these little nodes off. And that's how we're expanding our plant to go sideways. But after that, it's kind of just unnecessary, in my opinion. At that point, your plant you probably only need to do it once or twice, really. I'm still trying to find that sweet spot. But right now, I'm doing it 3 times, and I'm pretty happy with it. Do not top your plants 10 to 14 days before you plan on flipping into flower. This will give them enough time to recover and not cause too much stress. That kind of stress will cause intersects, and it will cause your plants to just be no good, and you'll have to cut them down, and you'll be sad. So we don't want to, when we plan to when, we'll be like, all right, this is the date when we're flowering. In a couple of weeks, we'll be flowering, so I'm going to stop my training 10 to 14 days before then. We're just going to be feeding. We're just going to keep them alive, nice and happy, and that's, that mitigates stress. But I also, I'll still do like heavy lollipopping too, so that's not necessarily the truth. Because day 1 of flower, I'll do a heavy stripping, and lollipopping is what you see in that picture. Let's go back to the transplanting picture, or training picture. Sorry, the naked legs on the bottom. That's lollipop, and that keeps all the mold and hot air and moisture away from your plants. It keeps a nice good airflow down there, and I've noticed that doesn't really hurt your plant. The training isn't too aggressive. Even if you do a lot in one day, I've noticed it doesn't stress your plants out too much. I don't know why. I feel like that would be the most stressful one, but it seems topping is way more stressful to your plant. Mostly probably because it's doing stuff genetically to the plant, but this is just removing, old stuff that, doesn't really matter. Super cropping will mostly be done with your LST plant benders, and again, in these pictures, those are the orange things. They're just these 90-degree plant benders that we're bending our plant into there. Again, we're going to do our training and technique video all by itself, and we'll get into how to use these trainers. You just slowly got to work them. Some plants are like woody, and you're going to need to like warm them up with the heat of your fingers and get them nice and loose before you can bend them. And other plants will be nice and bendy where you can just bend them in there and it'll be no problem. But we're bending them. You can see that they're all at the kind of the same point. We're bending them to get them even. And if there's a too tall of a top, we bend that one over. That's the ones that get bent over to where the point when they grow back up, they'll be even with each other. And then after 10 days, I take all those off, and I'll have to do that again. And I just keep repeating this process until, week 3 of flower. Let's see. Yeah, I don't leave these you know, I don't leave them on for more than 14 days because if you leave them on for 14 days, they're going to be really hard to get off, and then they're going to be a part of your plant and you'll lose them. These are reusable things, so that's why we only need them for 10 days. After 10 days, they stay that shape. You keep them there any longer, they're just going to become your plant, and you won't be able to, use them again. And that's the whole point of them. Any stems or tops that grow tall can be bent sideways, like I said, to help the plant grow like a bush instead of an evergreen Christmas tree. That's why we're topping and training in the first place, because our plants will grow like evergreen Christmas trees. And you top it, that will take that top of that Christmas tree off and let other tops come up. And that's why we do it like 3 times to get more of that bush shape. And anything that tries to escape and try to become the main top, we're bending over. And if any taller plants that are taller than our other plants, we're bending over more to help maintain an even canopy level of our plants. Lollipopping is the small leaves at the very bottom. What are those things called under the pots? Oh, we got plant risers. And if you see, I think you can only see one that has it. The plant riser keeps our plant off the ground so it's not cold. And it also keeps us out of the water if we have any excess water that needs to be drained out. So basically, you're just looking at pot saucers with plant or pot risers, and then the pots on top of them. Not all of them have it, but it's a good way to keep your soil off the or your pots off the ground in the wintertime, and not to let them soak in water for too long. Yeah, they're super nice and sturdy. I have a link into them in my previous episode. I believe they're like Next Pros, NXT Pros plant risers. And I use the 13-inch ones. They are super sturdy. I've been using them for a while. You can clean them very easily. They're stackable. That's how I also maintain my plant height and flower. Like if I have an indica, a short indica, and a tall sativa, I will stack multiple of these on top of each other to get that indica up high, so I don't have to, it just maintains that even canopy. That's how I get the ability to grow all different types of strains in one tent. Because if you're growing, anybody who's a experienced grower knows if you grow sativas with indicas, like, well, how the hell do you do that? Because the sativas are going to double, triple in size, and the indicas probably won't even stretch even 1.5 sometimes. So that's how I maintain my plant heights and have the ability. Those plant risers are awesome. You will have to find them. I think the link I posted is a good link, but you have to find a warehouse that will let you buy any amount of them, because a lot of them are like bulk sale stuff, so like minimum order of $500 or something. But there are ones that will sell them in quantities of 20 or something, which I do. I actually have like 40 of these things now, and they're $2.50 a piece, so it's not too bad in pricing. But if you bought them like on Amazon, they were like $8 or $9 a piece. Lattice light diffusers work well too, Tokes says. I don't know what those are, but I believe you, bro. Lollipopping. Sorry, I'm getting behind here. 1 hour and 8 minutes. I swear this was going to be so much quicker this time, but I'm wrong. Plastic egg grates are good too. Exube, good job. Double D says monstergardens.com for risers. Thank you, Double D. Yeah, those egg grates or those milk crates too. If you can like cut them down a little bit, could be good. I guess that is an egg crate. Those milk crates and egg crates are the same thing. Yeah, awesome stuff right there. Lollipopping, again, is the small leaves at the very bottom of your plant. If you're looking at the picture online on the video right now, all those naked branches at the bottom, that's what lollipopping looks like. Any leaves that are touching your cocoa or not receiving light, that's what we're pretty much taking off. We're only leaving like like in flower when we're plants done stretching and they're just in flower. We only leave like 18 inches of stuff on top. If your plant is 50 inches tall, you're only going to need that 18 inches on top most likely. Everything else below is just going to be larf and a pain in the ass to trim, unless you're trying to use it for concentrates or something. but having all that larf that's not getting the light, not getting the airflow, getting too hot. It's just a mixture of your plants getting stressed and causing intersex problems or having bugs or mold. Lollipopping is one of the biggest things you should be doing to your plant to maintain good climate control, good IPM strategies, and instead of focusing their energy on these crappy little buds that you won't be using anyways, they're focusing all that energy past them up to your big tops, and you'll get chunkier, denser nugs up top. Of what I've noticed when I get a really good super crop or a lollipop, my 18 inches of branches will all be solid nugs. When if you just kept it as a whole plant, only like 6 inches will be solid nugs, and then it just starts getting larfier and larfier and larfier as you go down. But if that's something you want to use for concentrates or edibles or something, I can't argue against that. But with the IPM side of things, definitely need to lollipop. And then defoliating, we'll defoliating leaves that are blocking tops. This will take time to become good at, but when you see a big fan leaf at the top of your plant that's just blocking light below, these fan leaves need to go so the tops under them can get light and grow to it. This helps promote a bushier plant with more tops too. We're mostly, like when I'm defoliating, I'm focusing in, and I was talking to this with Chad Westport in the first episode. We're focusing those leaves that are facing inwards to the plant. If you got that top couple leaves, like look at the top diagram again, like those leaves. If that's like in the middle of your plant, those two big leaves right there. Here, let me put that up on the screen too, so people know. Those two big leaves, if that's in the middle of your plant, and you got a bunch of tops under those solar panel leaves right there are good for that branch, but they're blocking so much light under your plant that it's detrimental to it. And you cut those two leaves off, it's got enough leaves up top to where it's still going to be growing just fine, and throughout its plant. But cutting those off will give you more light access and penetration to your other leaves and solar panels down below, and produce more yield, more dense nugs, more like you'll see, like if you and flower, like when you're doing, like if you did a bad defoliation job and you're trying to recover, like say in day 40, when you're doing that defoliation, you'll find these buds that are like light green and super airy, and they look like they're like 2 or 3 weeks younger than everything else. It's because they never got that light. If you did a defoliation sooner, those would be just like your tops. You'll get a full canopy of tops and heavy nugs and beautiful medicine. That's why when we're defoliating, we're specifically looking for those leaves that are blocking areas. We want to leave as much leaves on as we can, obviously, but that big fan leaf that's blocking 5 tops in the middle of your plant needs to go. And kind of go down too, like the fan leaves down below that aren't getting any light anyways need to go, and that will help light penetration. That'll help with climate control and mold. We don't need the excess leaves. We just need enough leaves for everything else. We're keeping the leaves that are pointing on the outside of the tent, or if they are affecting, the outside leaves are affecting other plants on another plant, those leaves need to go too. Any leaves that are blocking tops in your tent and in your canopy need to go, because once you're in that like flowering stage, your canopy is basically like one plant almost. It looks like, and you can tell the difference between your plants, but that's kind of the idea. Is you got one big canopy, and that whole canopy needs to be covered up, and make sure that every leaf that's blocking something on any plant needs to go, and we're keeping any leaves that are not blocking anything. It's just something you'll have to get good at. But yeah, it helps promote bushier plants with more tops, healthier tops, more penetration, more yield. Defoliation, lollipopping are huge. Topping and super cropping are more advanced techniques to get more tops and stuff too. But the lollipopping and defoliation are the ones you need to get good at first. So finally, this brings us to our large veg. Large veg plants are about 10 inches tall. Let me put large veg here. I'm posting large veg in the Discord too. this is what I consider my large veg. You can actually probably go a little bit smaller than that. I'll post another one for Discord only because I don't have this ready for the video. But those two pictures, the picture below that, you know, a little less than this picture is large veg. This is large veg, but before you get to this stage is also large veg, if that makes sense. Like the plants could be a little bit smaller. You'll see gaps in between the individual plants still. In Discord, you see what I'm talking about, but in the video, you only see that top picture. That's why I consider large veg. Your plants will be big and starting to fill your tent with tops. They will start wanting to be fed at higher ppms and more frequently. This is when we do all of our training and finish our topping before we go into flower. At this point, our roots should be filling the whole 3 to 5 gallon pot, whichever one you used. Thus, you need to make sure to water from rim to stem. I water from the outside in. All of our feeding roots are searching outwards. So if we're only watering where the stem is, that's not how we water. We water from the outside all the way to the inside. Our entire base of root and soil and cocoa, whatever you want to call it, is going to be wet. And we're going to get into watering tech in a second here, but we don't want any dry spots. That causes issues, and the best way to know that we're maintaining a good pot and watering technique is from outside of the pot to the stem is wet, and we're watering until we get about that 5 to 10% runoff. That guarantees everything from top to bottom is wet. Got that little bit of runoff to prove that that's true, and that's how if you do that every time you water, that's how you know you're watering properly in cocoa. Don't do this in soil. Soil is different, and you can overwater easily in there. But for cocoa, we're pretty much maintaining that. We'll get into the watering tech in a second. Let's just keep going. Again, make sure you're following the watering tech. We'll get that in a second. You should have lots of airflow by this time. About 2 fans stirring up the air. The plants will slightly move in the wind, but don't make it like a hurricane again. But the wind conditions will be a little bit stronger than it was with just your little small seedlings and your small veg. I got 2 of them. Usually it's in corner to corner facing each other, so the wind will hit each other and make this vortex. It's, again, not directly pointed at them, and both of them are above the canopy at this point still, too. I don't have any fans below the canopy. I don't do that until flower. So I got 2 up high on low facing each other, and they're creating just a good vortex in there that keeps your plants just slightly swaying. Again, if it's looking like a hurricane in there and they're blowing sideways, you need to make adjustments. We're just adding airflow. Our temp and humidity, again, is still 75 degrees, 77 degrees, somewhere in there. Probably no higher than 84 degrees is a good way to determine that. 60 to 65% humidity, again, it's probably good. Maybe 55% humidity. Your plants will tell you what they want. But 75 degrees, 60% humidity, holy cow, is a good base to start from. And a VPD of like 1.2 or 1.4, somewhere in there, whichever ones you follow. Again, our light height, we're actually dropping down to 24 inches now. And our light timer will be 18.6, and our light intensity will be 300 watts. And that's full max if you're using the HLG 300 L spec or LB spec or the Mars Hydro 2000. Both of those will be fully cranked by large veg at 24 inches. So then when we move them to our flower tent with our Scorpion Diablo, they will be primed and ready to go. And that's basically where we'll be done at. I'm going to go through the watering tech, but at this stage, we finished up our training and our technique. We're just maintaining our feed, our Veg week 2 feed every day. Making sure our plants are nice and healthy. We're not going to be doing any more topping here. No more. We will be doing some super cropping, defoliation, and lollipopping, but the topping needs to stop 10 to 14 days before we flip into flower. And this is when, like this picture that I have up right now, is when I flip into flower. My tent will look like this So when I got that even canopy, almost completely filled my tent. You know, it's corner to corner, but I still got gaps to fill and room to put my plants, to bend them over as they grow still. But this is what I aim for my plants to look like before I flip my tent. Whether you're growing 9 plants, 4 plants, 1 plant, I want my canopy to look corner to corner. Whether you're in a 5x5, 10x5, 3x3, 2x, like, we're not wasting any of our lighting. We're not wasting any of our square footage. Everything is tops from corner to corner. That's what we're looking for. And then that's when we're ready to flip into flower. And that will be next week. But before we get to that, we need to talk about water tech just super quickly. And again, this is going to have to be its own episode. But I felt like it needed to be discussed because I really haven't talked about watering in here at all. So here's the water tech 1 through 5 explanation. You got to think of it as 1 being absolutely no water, extremely light. You can tell just by looking at dry, crispy soil. The plants are drooping, tipping over. They're pretty much dead. They're crispening up. Their leaves are shriveling up. You never want to be a 1. If you're a 1, you're fucking up. And sorry for the language, but that's just simple. We never want to get to 1. Life happens, shit happens. Obviously, you know, emergencies happen. You can't beat yourself up if your plants die because you couldn't get to them. But if we're maintaining, you know, we're in there every day, we will not ever hit a 1. And a 5 is the complete opposite. Water is overflowing in the drainage. It is extremely heavy to pick up, and death is also near and almost certainly going to happen if you keep it at that. And when I mean water is pouring out of the sides, I mean you got that like 5 to 10% runoff when you're feeding. When you're overfeeding, that runoff is like 30 to 40% every day, 50%. You know, you got water that is just pouring out of that. Like in cocoa, it's kind of hard to kill your plants overwatering, but your plants will not be happy in this scenario. They won't get any oxygen. They will just die off. That's why you need a good wet dry time. But that 1 and a 5 are both death zones. We will never be there. We'll be working between the 2 and 4 zone. I just kind of want to go over that. But so number 2 is when the plants are starting to droop a little bit. You'll see like they'll curl downwards. We were talking to somebody today. Sorry, Uzo, I think it was you today. We were talking about you see that little curl go down. That's when you notice that it's either a sign of overwatering or underwatering. But to see that it's underwatering, the soil will be brown. It's not black from being wet, but it's not like almost gray, that gray cocoa, that really light brown of being like crispy dry. So this is the point of time where we need to get our water. This is like the critical time to get our water back up to a 3 or a 4, which the 3 is the sweet spot. 3 is what we're maintaining, is the perfect like water moisture level for cocoa. We kind of bring it up to a 4. In general, we're bringing up our water content to a 4 and drop it, and it might drop down to a 2. Then we bring it up to a 4, drop it down to 2, bring it up to a 4. So every time it goes down to a 4, we water again. But I maintain that 3, so I'll let it drop down to a 3 and bring it up to a 4 every day, and then let it come back down to a 3. But there are some people who think it needs to be more dry, want it to be more dry in between watering. So 3 is a sweet spot. Sometimes you need to saturate to a 4 again overnight. Finger in the soil about 2 inches down, and you feel moisture. That's a 3. The 3 is basically just a heavy watered pot. It doesn't have any runoff coming out of it. It's like a pot that you watered a couple hours ago. It might be a little bit dry on top from all the airflow hitting it. But if you can see under, you don't even have to put your finger in it. You can almost see under the cocoa that it's still wet. That's a 3. It's not draining at all. It's a heavy pot. It's really heavy to pick up. You can feel the water all, like if you put your back of your hand at the bottom of the pot, you can feel the moisture down there. If it's too dry, or if you didn't water enough, this is a little technique I learned in fabric pots. If you put your hand down at the bottom of the pot and you don't, after you watered and you don't feel any moisture, you didn't put enough water to get down to those roots. So you need to water a little bit more until you feel that moisture down there. That's why, a lot of people go, oh, I don't need to run drainage every time. The drainage is to make sure that we're doing it properly every time. If we get that 5%, if we get that little 5% water that drains out of the bottom pots every time we water, we know we put enough water into our entire pot from top to bottom, and it's a 3 or slightly a 4 since it's slightly, got that drainage going on, but it's going to be a 3 shortly thereafter. And if we can maintain that moisture level, maybe let it drop a little bit, maybe like a 2.5 or something, but then bring it back up to a 3 or a 4. That's how I water. And again, we're going to have to really dive into this in another episode, because watering is such a difficult thing and an easy thing to screw up, and it seems to be most people's issues. I'm still trying to get better at watering. I'm not trying to lie. Everybody probably can get better at their watering techniques, because it's something that we need to understand more as humans for our plants. So a 4 in the watering tech that's what we're aiming for when we're watering. You get that 10-15% runoff. You keep watering until it's achieved. Again, you can feel at the bottom with the back of your hand or something, or visually the water will actually pour out of the bottom, get that 10% runoff. It's heavy, but it's not like mud. You get that nice wet base, the dark black cocoa, but it's not muddy. It's not like you don't see like standing water up there or anything. That's when you get to the 5. The 5 again is, you got to the 4, but you just kept pouring for some reason. And now everything's going to be just rushing out of your pot. You're going to have to dump your saucer. You never want to get to a 5. Once that water starts pouring at the bottom, you're done. Don't pour anymore. Anything after that is going to be a huge detriment to you, and you will probably kill your plants. The 5 and 1 is what we're missing. We're trying to maintain that 3, and throughout the day it goes up from a 4 down to maybe a 2, a 2.2, but every time we water, we bring it up to a 3. Bigger plants and smaller pots will probably need watered more often, and multiple times in a day. Bigger plants and bigger pots won't need to be watered as much. You probably only need to water them once a day. A lot of people like to do the high frequency feedings. I just like to feed once a day, and that's why I'm moving back up to 5 gallons to help maintain that 3 a lot easier. Still trying to figure it all out, but that's basically, the seed to veg video right there. That's our watering tech. We'll once again, if there's anything I missed, shoot it out in the comments, either in Discord. You can email me at graybeardsconsulting@gmail.com. You can, any of the comments, just find a way to tell me what I missed, and I'll get over it. But like this, or I'll go over it again. But we will have future episodes about watering tech. We'll have future episodes about seed germination. We'll have episodes about more training techniques and diving deeper into it. I need to get better pictures and stuff for that. But this guide was just a basic guide to get you going and knowing what you're doing and how to get past it and all. And I messed up and missed a bunch of different timestamps. I realized again, I only wrote down 3 timestamps, so I failed at that. But yeah, next week we'll get into the flowering, the drying, the curing, and the resetting, and then that will finish our, how to grow cannabis. Not finish it, but this the initial series. So all you new growers that are just wondering what you need to buy, how to grow it, what are you looking for. That's what this original 5 episode part is for. And then we will all together learn deeper dives into different categories and topics and all sorts of that. And again, we're going to get into like cannabis culture. We want to get into the history, misinformation that's happened, the war on drugs, all that sorts of stuff. We really want to dive into that too, for the people that maybe grew up with the propaganda and don't, just need to understand the actual history of it and culture of it. And, it's not these stoners that are melting their brains and, It's not some kind of hippie madness or anything. That's so. But other than that, we'll have two. So we'll keep going on with the grow series. We'll have a cannabis culture type series, and we're gonna all just grow together. I also am getting into like octopots, so I want to teach everybody, my process of doing the octopots when I get into that. I also want to get into like organic people. We're gonna bring on the organic growers to tell you how to grow organically. The no-till growers, which maybe the same person. The outdoor, which is also maybe the same person. But then the hydro, maybe aquaponics, aeroponics. We're gonna try to get all. We're gonna try to learn everything that we possibly can in this series. And I just wanted to catch everybody up to that point. And next week, after next week's episode, we should be there. So, heck yeah, we're almost there. It only took an hour and 30 minutes this time, but don't go anywhere because now we're doing our giveaway from Microlife Hydro. I'm trying to see who's in here who hasn't won already. Double D, have you won before? I can't even remember. We might actually. Well, Ben's Canadian, so Ben, you're screwed. You can't get it. Sorry, Ben. They're trying to get into Canada, but they got labeling issues and stuff. So Double D doesn't have it. J-Rock, I don't think you have it either, do you? No, you never won. And then I think Two Tokes never won. Everybody else has won. So we're going to have to do a seed or a random number generator. Woo! Haven't done this in a couple weeks. So we got 3 people who are going to guess. Let's see, and the 2 winners. So one of you is going to be shit out of luck. But if you come next week, I'll make you the winner. So just come back next week, and I'll remember that you didn't win this week, and we'll get you in on the winning. But it'll be fun and games anyways. So I think we'll just do 1 through 10 to make it easy. I need 2 numbers. Okay, it just generated the same 2 numbers. Okay, reset. Okay, so go ahead, start guessing. You can guess as many times as you want. And 2 tokes is in a... Oh, 2. 2 is 1, and keep going. 2 tokes, you won one of them. The only number he guessed. Keep going. Still haven't guessed it. Keep going. Keep going. 1 through 10. Keep going. Keep going. There you go. Double D. All right. J-Rock, come back next week. I got you, bro. You'll win next week. Double D, 2 tokes. You guys are the winner this week. Email or DM me on Discord your addresses. I'll send it out to Microlife Hydro, and they'll send those out. Almost everybody has received their packages. 1 week, the 2 winners seem to not have received them, and we're still getting through that. But please let me know. I'll talk to you in the DMs. But any winners who haven't received anything, please message me, and we'll make sure to get those bottles out to you. Again, J-Rock, next week I'll make you the automatic winner. So just show up next week. You got it. And again, that's Photosynthesis Plus, Microlife Hydro, which you get. The sample packs, which are, let me make sure I'm get all the things correctly. You get a thing of Photosynthesis Plus, a thing of Nourish, a thing of Root Dip, and a thing of Veg Bloom Enhancer. And they also might send you their Terp Enhancer too, their new bottle. So this will be their sample packs. You should be able to use all of them for a full grow, no problem. I personally, again, love their Photosynthesis Plus. I drench my plant in that. Their Nourish, Root Dip, and Veg Bloom Enhancer. I just got my bottles recently. I'm just looking into them. They look very interesting. They're all micro products. They're all derived from like a humic compost mixture. Now I might just be talking out my ass, so I'll just stop with that. But it looks really good. I'm really excited to try those. Again, Double D and 2 tokes. Send me your addresses. And J-Rock, show up next week. I got you, bro. We had to do that. I think I did that with Michigan or something a couple of weeks ago. I want you all guys to try their products, so we'll make sure you all get it. And then for Patreon shout-outs, again, Oozlefinch, Sunny and Backtopia, and Form and Finish Co. Those are my 3 Patreons. Shout out to you guys. Thank you for the support. Much love. Oozle Finch was the OG. I'm going to have to shout him out every time. Shout out to you, Oozle Finch. I appreciate you, bro. It was a great time talking to you today in our Wake and Bake chats that you can find in our Discord. I try to get up every day and do a Wake and Bake. We sat there and talked about Oozle Finch's plants for a while. He showed off his bud pictures. We talked, not just him, a bunch of other people. It was a good time. It was nice talking to you, Oozle. And again, thank you for the support. And thank you all for your support, even if you're not supporting me on Patreon. But if you would like to get a shout out on the show, or have your Instagram in the description, or have access to all my SOPs, you can support me on Patreon at patreon.com/growingcannabis with Graybeard. You can find all my pictures on my Instagram at graybeards_consulting. So if you're just listening to some random dude talk and you're wondering, should I even listen to his advice? Go look at my Instagram, look at my pictures, and you can decide for yourself if that's something you're interested in. You can also find me on YouTube, all your RSS feeds, including Spotify, Amazon, Google, and Stitcher at Growing Cannabis with Graybeard. You can also find my Discord, coupons, and all other links used in this show in the description below. And next week's show, we will be focusing on our flowering, our dry and cure, and resetting our grow. And it will be our final beginner's guide to how to grow episode. And from there on, we'll be diving into more advanced topics. So then everybody's on the same page. Can't wait to do that. Can't wait to get all you guys on the same page with me, so then we can all grow together. Because when we get those organic guys on, when we get the aquaponic guys on, when we talk about history and the culture and stuff, I'll be learning with you guys. So I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited to do research for you guys on these things, get the smart dudes on here to talk about these things. But I really felt like we needed to get you guys caught up and just how to grow. I wanted everybody to just have a successful, easy grow. And yeah, just much love to you guys. I appreciate you all. Peace, love, and respect. I'll see you next week. And I can't wait for the future of growing with you guys. And please join us on Discord. Join us in the voice chat. We have good-ass mornings, good-ass times. Love you guys. Have a good night.